This is my project over the MLK assassination and the cover-up and the alleged FBI cover-up. Uh, I'm doing this based on a timeline of events, so I'll start at the earliest point and then we'll move on to later points. Now, just because something is later on this timeline, it doesn't necessarily mean that it happens later. Like, for instance, I have a lot of recanting that is put a lot later on the timeline, even though the events that it's talking about happen earlier on the timeline. So, like, the actual assassin, or the guy who's blamed for the assassination of Dr. King, is his confession is at one point on the timeline, but then him explaining the events from his perspective is later on the timeline because it doesn't happen yet. He doesn't go out of his way to explain it yet. So that's just my big little bit that I'm going to give first. So throughout the 1960s up until 1967, there was a lot of surveillance on Dr. King by the FBI. They were very threatened by a lot of his ideas. At the time, the FBI director was a man named Edgar Hoover. He labeled Dr. King a national threat and a communist sympathizer, very common for the 60s. Under, I believe it's Cointopro, I don't know how to say that particularly. The FBI began extensive wiretapping and psychological operations, including but not limited to sending King an anonymous letter suggesting that he commit suicide before being exposed for extramarital affairs. They really did not like Dr. King. In the 1967, Dr. King announces the Poor People's Campaign and speaks against the Vietnam War. Another thing they really didn't like him doing, but he did it anyway. Dr. King was probably a cool dude. The FBI feared King is becoming an unifying figure. I don't know the word. I know what it means. I don't know how to say it. Or, that says unifying. What am I on about? Unifying figure for an anti-establishment coalition. I just read it, and I did not know what it said, even though I knew the word. Now, in late 1967, there's a man named James Earl Ray. He's the guy who's blamed for the assassination of Dr. King. A man named Raul allegedly enters this man's life. Ray claims a lot of things, including that he manipulates where Ray is going and makes him purchase a rifle that leads the assassination. I should mention this, I didn't put it here, but he also claims that he helped him break out of prison, which it's slightly known that Ray broke out of prison before killing King. Now, Ray is officially reported living in Atlanta for a while, not far from the FBI offices, actually. He purchases a Remington 30-06 rifle, fingerprints it, and then allegedly discards it right after shooting, which is a very odd choice of an escape plan. Why would you discard the rifle when you could keep it? You know, it makes it harder to fingerprint you and whatnot. Witnesses near a flophouse bathroom from where the shot supposedly comes from report seeing a man who did not resemble Ray, and some saw multiple people fleeing the scene. Again, a lot of the witness testimony from people who were actually involved in this, or like the eyewitness accounts, don't match up a lot of the time. Like, there's a lot of different stories. Like, some people say they saw a man in a bush. Some people say they saw Ray himself shoot from the window that he shot from. Other people say there were multiple shooters. The stories very rarely add up, so it makes it kind of hard to dig through all this, and it definitely didn't hurt, the whole conspiracy angle to this. Now, there's a weird thing that happens, like, immediately after Dr. King's shot. Police removed King's body from the balcony and washed the crime scene with the fire hose before any forensic evidence can be done or a courier report can be put together or anything like that. They wash the crime scene down with a fire hose, and this destroys a bunch of evidence. And then a little ways down the street in front of a store, a bundle allegedly containing the rifle and Ray's belongings is found in the street, conveniently linking him to the crime. Very convenient that there's also a few other things that are said, like people say that before the shot had even rung out, people claim to have seen the rifle and whatnot. Here's a few other suspicious details. The hotel, the Laron Motel, the security detail that they normally have there was absent the day King was shot. Why? I'm not going to specify why. They weren't there. Police changed King's room to one with a more exposed sniper angle. This is another one of those interesting thoughts, or things that you hear about. Dr. King's room was changed the day he was assassinated from where he was supposed to be staying to a different room that was conveniently right in the line of sight of Earl Ray. There were no autopsy photos were released publicly, and the FBI moved quickly to close the case. They were very quick with it. I don't have like an exact figure here in front of me, but they were very quick with it. I think it only took them a few weeks or maybe months to close the case. In April through June 1968, James Earl Ray escaped. He escapes from prison. Wait, hold on. No, sorry. What am I talking about? I have my timeline wrong. Sorry. I just had it written escape and arrest of James Earl Ray. What I meant to say is it's how he escapes custody and manages to evade them. He secures multiple aliases and passports, which, for just some guy who decided that he was going to pick up a bounty, which is the general established narrative, is that he was killing King for an established bounty. I'm trying to remember what group it was. There was a group that had set a bounty out on Dr. King's head, and he went, and the established narrative is that he went to kill King to collect the bounty. But he had multiple passports and aliases, and he manages to get through Canada, Portugal, and the UK, allegedly, according to him, receiving financial help from an unknown source. Like someone's trying to help him escape. In some retellings, it's more likely that it's the Raoul figure from before, the guy who helped him get the rifle and actually get to Atlanta, where he perpetrates the killing of Dr. King. Or it could be the people who are paying him to kill Dr. King, like the aforementioned group that had a bounty out on King's head. In June 8th, 1968, Ray is arrested in London trying to fly to Brussels. I think it says Brussels. British intelligence is tipped off by the FBI, who find him really quickly. Like, it doesn't take long to find him. So, March 10th, 1969. This is when the trial of Earl Ray happens. He pleads guilty. Not unnatural. If they had him dead to rights, he pleads guilty and he gets a 99-year sentence. It's his sentence. He gets 99 years in prison. Days later, he recants, claiming he was coerced by his lawyer and never wanted to plead guilty. This was a no-jury trial, which means there was no cross-examination, no witnesses were brought in, and there was no public investigation of this at all. It was, he pled guilty coercion by his lawyers, and he never wanted to do it. But he recants his guilty statement when he's in prison, which you're not supposed to do at all. Recanting a guilty statement is like a big no-no. Let's see, hold on. So the House Select Committee on Assassinations comes in, and they do their own little investigation. A lot of it in private trials and private investigations that we really don't know the details of. But the first time they go through, they say that King was likely assassinated by Ray acting alone, was not likely assassinated by Ray acting alone, but a low-level conspiracy may have existed. Not a big thing to say, but through the 80s and 90s, a bunch of people come through. Like William Pepper, who was the King family lawyer at the time, alleges Ray was a patsy used by a larger network, involvement by the FBI, Memphis Police Department, and possibly military intelligence. A sniper team from the 20th Special Forces Group may have been in Memphis that day under the guise of riot control. If true, which I know that he wrote this in one of his books that he wrote about the story. I don't know where he gets his information from, but I do know he writes this, and he is a first account source, as he was the lawyer on the case. I don't know where he gets the whole 20th Special Forces group may have been in Memphis thing, but I'm inclined to believe him. In 1993, Lloyd Jowers, the owner of Jim's Grill, adjacent to the boarding house where the whole assassination went down, publicly claims he was paid $100,000 to arrange King's murder. The final shot came from behind his restaurant, not the boarding house where Earl Ray had shot King from. He was part of a conspiracy involving the mafia and government agencies, specifically the FBI. They're the people who get a lot of blame for this, which is fair. So in 1999, there's a King's family civil trial, a verdict of conspiracy. The King's family sues Lloyd Jowers in a Memphis civil court. 70 witnesses testify, including military and government insiders. So a lot of people start testifying the second an actual trial happens, instead of just an open shut case and a coercion by a lawyer against Earl Ray. The jury rules Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated as a result of conspiracy involving government agencies, and they did this in December 1999. The verdict details Ray was not the shooter. The federal, state, and local governments were complicit or negligent. So they conclude that Ray not only did not shoot Martin Luther King, but they conclude that it was more likely that either a federal, state, or local government were either directly complicit in the killing of Dr. King, or their negligence caused the killing, both of which are probably somewhere close to the truth. The media largely ignored this trial. There's not a lot of reporting about this trial. I think because the killing of Dr. King happened so long before this, nearly 30 years beforehand, that I think it's actually that's nearly 30 years, whatever. I think it's a little over 30. They ignore this trial. The media, very little reporting happens to it. So there has been a lot of official denials, and there's still a bunch of evidence. Like, for instance, the U.S. Department of Justice reviews the 1999 verdict, but rejects its conclusions, citing insufficient evidence. Key witnesses were never re-interviewed, and the investigation is closed. So, you're telling me that the Department of Justice gets to go, open a case, and be like, nope, that evidence doesn't matter, without doing any more due diligence, and just saying there's insufficient evidence without re-interviewing the witnesses who were there. Now, granted, I doubt the witnesses, because there's a lot of conflicting witness statements. To be fair, a man was just shot. I don't expect everyone to remember perfectly what happens that day. And they just say, nope, insufficient evidence. We don't want to go with that verdict anymore. We're just going to say that the conclusions are wrong, because there's not enough evidence to support their conclusions, which is fair to an extent. But also, why are they even opening this case to begin with? Declassified documents continue to shed light on COINTELPRO activities. MLK's children, particularly Dexter King and Bernice King, publicly support Ray's innocence and call for a new investigation. So, interesting thing about Dexter King, he met Ray in prison. And after talking to him for a good little while, he went out of that prison claiming Ray was innocent. Which is interesting to me, that he claims that the man who is on paper having killed his father is innocent and didn't actually do it. I love that little fun fact. It's one of my favorites. William Pepper publishes multiple books claiming the identity. The actual shooter is a Memphis police officer. The coordination of the plot involving the military, the FBI, and organized crime. William Pepper, if I remember correctly, is Ray's lawyer? I have it written down in my research document who he actually was, but I'm looking at my timeline right now, so I don't have like all my information in front of me, but I have enough to make the video and make it look cool. So, while the official narrative holds that James Earl Ray acted alone, the accumulated testimony and destroyed evidence, intelligence manipulation, and a civil trial verdict have fueled persistent claims that Dr. King was assassinated by a coordinated conspiracy involving government agencies, local law enforcement, and possibly organized crime. By the way, besides the evidence that comes up in the civil trial and this one testimony from a guy, I wasn't able to find anything about how the mafia might have been involved in the assassination of Dr. King. Besides the fact that people keep saying it, that the local mafia of Memphis, Tennessee was involved in the killing of Dr. King. This is not a laughing matter, but this case is very detailed and there is a whole lot to it. And they were seeking to silence his growing anti-establishment influence. Like I said, he was in the middle of a protest. I had his final words on my research document. I don't have them right here. But yeah, Dr. King was very anti-establishment. He spoke out against the Vietnam War. He was speaking for workers' rights. He was speaking for desegregation. He was speaking for the rights of the black community. And if there was a conspiracy and Dr. Martin Luther King was killed by the FBI, I think this is a very gross misuse of government resources. But I want to thank you for your time, and this has been my submission for my U.S. History end-of-year project. I will share the accompanying timeline that I used for this project. Thank you.